I am here with Patrick Lancaster. Patrick, welcome to the Duran once again. It's great to have you with us. Before we get started talking about what's going on the front lines, where can people follow your work?
Hi, Alex. Thanks for having me again. It's always great to be on with you guys to help each other show the world what they're not going to see in the Western mainstream media. And of course, people can find the bulk of my big reports on my YouTube channel, Patrick Lancaster, and my new outlet platform that gets a lot of more of my journalism work that doesn't reach YouTube is Substack, my free blog on Substack. That's where so much more goes. So if anybody wants to get the most out of my work, they've got to subscribe to my Substack for sure. It's free blog. Of course, there's an option for $8 a month, but you just got to go and get at least a free subscription there. And of course, for those who don't know me, I've been covering the Ukraine war since 2014. And of course, now that's, for the last 3 years that Russia has been in it. And I basically hit every front line that where the news is developing in the war, and right now I'm in the Kursk region near the front line, and I've been documenting the newest developments that have been happening here with Russia just taking so much territory back from Ukraine.
Okay, so the obvious question, Patrick, but by the way, I will have all of your information linked in the description box down below and as a pinned comment as well, as for where people can follow your work. But the obvious question to ask you is, what is the situation in Kursk?
Well, just after the first week of this month, I believe on the 8th, Russian forces conducted a really kind of unbelievable operation where they tunneled underneath Ukrainians' defensive lines. They used gas pipes, and they literally, hundreds came out on the other side of the Ukrainian defensive lines, just popped up out of nowhere, and made the Ukrainian lines just crumble. And the Ukrainian soldiers just started retreating in masses. And unfortunately, destroying a lot as they left, but they had also been doing that for 7 months. But so Russia just immediately after this operation commenced, they started just taking massive amounts of territory from Ukraine, back from Ukraine, and almost completely encircling a huge amount. There was different statements made about were they encircled, were they not, how many were encircled, how many weren't, and things like this. I can't say exactly what the amount of Ukrainian soldiers that were encircled, but I can say what the situation has been this week that I've been here is there's been small pockets of Ukrainian soldiers that you could say encircled, but the real thing is they were hiding and still are hiding. And every day, Ukrainian soldiers have been being taken captive by Russian forces, as Russian forces have just been plowing over, all of their defense lines and taking all of this territory back. I mean, we're talking about the Ukrainian stronghold, former stronghold in the Kursk region of Sumy, and almost all of the towns near it, and basically the only territory still controlled by Ukraine, if you can even call it that, is by the border. The streets have just been littered with Ukrainian soldiers. I've seen just so many Ukrainian soldiers, and unfortunately a lot of civilians as well. There's been a lot of war crimes. I believe last time I was on, we talked about how I found a group of civilians that were clearly hiding in a bomb shelter during the fighting, and this was in a village that had just been changed hands. Just days prior, Russian forces took control of the village, and we found many civilians basically executed with a grenade. We're talking elderly women, elderly men, and just horrible war crimes. But fact is, now all the villages are just left in ruins as Ukrainian forces have been evacuating. I mean, I'm talking pure destruction and death. One soldier commented to me how much of a smelly summer it's going to be in the Kursk region, because all of these buildings are just completely destroyed, and there's hundreds, if not thousands, of bodies stuck under rubble, both soldiers and civilians. And so the fact that situation on the ground is in Kursk, I mean, it's pretty much over. Yeah, there's a little sliver on the border like that, but the major, as far as I'm told, the major attacks, rocket attacks, are all being launched from the Sumy region now. They're not even launching these rocket attacks from Kursk region. That's coming over the Sumy Kursk border. The word is that they're still launching kamikaze and drone attacks from on the border within the territory of Kursk. But I mean, this is almost over. I mean, I've heard estimates another week the last Ukrainian soldier will be kicked out of the Kursk region, and I've heard a month. But I mean, the war in Kursk, you could pretty much say, compared to what it was and what it is in other regions, is pretty much over here for now in Kursk. And I would not be surprised to see a big reorganization of forces directed on another front, and the push to just continue with the taking of territory from Ukraine. And of course, we've been seeing almost on every front Russia taking territory in the last weeks in the Kherson territory, in the islands in the river bed, Zaporozhye and Donetsk small villages, and Kherson, rumors that some parts of the little bit that's left have been taken, but nothing full yet. But yeah, so that's the situation here in Kursk. Every day there are civilians evacuated from the front line by the Russian army. I was just an hour ago was with the military police and emergency services of Russia that went into Sumy to evacuate civilians. Now, and the civilians say, well, why do I want to evacuate? You're already here. We made it. And unfortunately, what the soldiers are answering is, yeah, well, you made it through the time when Ukraine was here because we were trying not to shell civilians. But now that Russian forces have taken control again, Ukraine is just going to be hammering the civilian areas. So, yeah, that's the situation right now in Kursk.
So Trump put a number with Kursk of the troops that are surrounded the other day at 2,500. Could that number correlate to the pockets of Ukraine soldiers that are trapped that you're talking about, Patrick? Or is that number, does that seem too high? Or you don't know? You can't tell?
You know, there's a level of it that I don't know, but from what I've heard, it's a totally incorrect statement. I think he was just misinformed on the situation on the ground, because it was more of, I mean, maybe the numbers, what's actually circled and how many have been captured and killed, you know, definitely is above, if you include how many killed in this last week, is definitely above 2,000. But as far as fully encircled, it just doesn't seem realistic to me from what I've seen and what I've heard. But again, I'm not a military commander on the ground. I'm just here doing the best as I can to try to document what the real situation is.
Have you heard about the soldiers making it out of Kursk by foot? Because there have been some reports from Western media saying that a lot of the Ukrainian soldiers made it out, but on foot. from the region to Sumy.
Well, yeah, from what I understand, I mean, when these lines collapsed, it was total panic and chaos from the Ukrainian forces, and some made it out by foot, some in vehicles, and others just are still hiding in basements. I mean, all of the territory has not been cleared yet. I've been going with Russian forces every day, and I mean, it's still a tense situation in a lot of these areas. I mean, I was strictly told, you cannot go in buildings right now because could be Ukrainian forces in some of the buildings. So, I mean, it's a really, dangerous situation since it happened so quick. And I mean, I've seen prisoners of war that almost every day being marched back from the line. And, I make it a point not to film or interview any prisoners of war. I don't make a spectacle out of prisoners of war on any side. Do my best to go with the Geneva Convention to the fullest of my ability. But it's happening. I've seen the prisoners of war getting marched back from the front every day.
Have you heard anything about the reports from RIA Novosti, which claimed 30 NATO officials in Kursk? Have you heard anything from any soldiers or commanders in the Kursk region, Russian, talking about NATO forces or NATO officials in the region?
Not particularly NATO officials or anything like this, but I did have several conversations with Russian soldiers about the reality of foreign fighters, mercenaries, volunteers, whatever you want to call them. They call them mercenaries on the ground, and what happens when they're taken captive. And, because this is also kind of pushed forward with the statements from Vladimir Putin saying that he commented that foreign mercenaries are not covered under the Geneva Convention and will not get the rights of a Geneva Convention. And I spoke to these soldiers and they said, yeah, we're willing to take prisoners of war that are Ukrainians, but not interested in taking foreign mercenary prisoners of war. And this also comes on the heels of just earlier this month, a British mercenary, volunteer, whatever you want to call it, soldier that was fighting for Ukraine in the Kursk region. I believe it was November, was captured. At the beginning of this month, his trial finished and he was sentenced to 19 years for, I believe the charge was terrorism or along those lines against the Russia. So it seems like Russia is not playing around with prisoners, foreign mercenaries. So, I mean, it really looks like, death or jail for any foreign mercenaries that come to fight against Russia.
What have you heard about what's happening in Sumy, Patrick? Is Russia going to create a type of buffer zone in Sumy? Have they already started to operate out of Sumy? What's the situation like in Sumy on the Ukraine side of the border?
Well, yes, there's definitely Russian soldiers in Sumy, Ukraine, controlling territory. It does make sense that they would want to make a buffer zone so they don't have some event happen like it did in August again in Kursk region. I've heard rumors of specifically using the words buffer zone, and I believe it was February 20th when Moscow stated that Russia was in the Sumy region. And of course, for weeks, Ukraine and Ukrainian media denied it. And then finally, Ukraine at the beginning of the month came out and admitted that Russian forces were in Sumy. But how fast they're moving, it's since they admitted they were, there's definitely been more territory taken. As I understand, it's not a huge amount, it's kind of symbolic maybe at this point, but steadily growing. And this makes it not 7 regions that have fighting in them between Russia and Ukraine. Now there's 8. Sumy is the 8th region, and this is on top of the 4 regions that Russia says is Russia, Ukraine says is Ukraine, which is, of course, Donetsk, Zaporozhye, Kherson, and Lugansk, which is the disputed zones. But now we've got fighting on the Kharkov region, of course. I was there a few weeks ago. Now Sumy, Kursk, and, of course, Belgrade. And just yesterday and the day before, the day before it started, a Ukrainian offensive attempted Ukrainian offensive into the Belgorod region, which was reportedly defeated and failed, which in that operation, Russia purportedly shot down a U.S. supplied F-16 over the Sumy region just across the border that was supporting that operation. And of course, in, I believe, February, starting in February, Russia made a lot of gains in the Kharkov region, going across the Oxal River in pontoon boats, on pontoons and in rubber boats, and putting up firing and defensive positions on the other side of the river. There's 8 regions of fighting now, and all 8 have either been confirmed Russia is taking territory, and the only one that's a little bit up in the air is Lugansk. But the rest, no question that Russia is taking territory in the last weeks in.
What's happening in the south, in the Zaporozhye, Kherson direction? Even Zelensky said the other day that Russia's preparing some sort of big attack in the south. We are getting reports that there are a lot of forces. Russian forces in that area.
And it makes sense that that's going to be Russia's next big push. Now, is that really what's going to happen? Or maybe it's a little bit of, trickery, who knows? But it makes sense that would be the next big attack, because that's where Russia is lacking the most in territory and will have the most difficult time taking territory, because the front line is literally carved in the geography of the regions. We're talking about the river and riverbed and empty reservoir there. And the last I heard is from the governor of the Kherson region, as far as territory, stated that all of the islands in the riverbed and river had been taken control of by Russian forces. And if Russia is preparing a large assault, it would make sense that it would be in the Kherson area and, for that matter, Zaporozhye area. And, of course, I'll go down there if it happens.
Okay. Just a final question, Patrick. All the diplomacy that has been taking place over the past couple of weeks, even the phone call between Trump and Putin. You also had a phone call the other day between Zelensky and Trump. Are the military, are the command, the soldiers, are they getting news of what's happening with the diplomacy?
Yeah, they are, and they're hoping peace comes, because everybody wants peace. They want people to stop dying as well. They want to go home, but they're definitely liking the idea of this new ceasefire, because if they see anything that leads to the U.S. denying of lethal aid or weapons to Ukraine is a good thing, especially if it entails them not having to stop the fight, because they understand if United States is not supplying this lethal aid and weapons to Ukraine, the war is not going to last that much longer. Ukraine is just not going to be able to defend itself, and that's what is going to stop the war. I mean, like Trump told Zelensky, they would have been defeated within days, if not weeks, after February of 2022. And that, it took Trump needing to tell Zelensky he's losing, and he would lose completely without U.S. help. So, yeah, Russian soldiers are liking what's happening as far as the stoppage of aid to Ukraine.
Right. Let me just ask you one more question, Patrick. When Trump spoke with Zelensky, Zelensky made a request for Patriot missile systems. Do you know what the situation is like in Ukraine with air defense and with Patriots? Trump said that he's going to ask European partners for Patriots. He says the U.S. is not, or he implied that the U.S. is not going to be giving over any Patriot systems. He's going to ask the Europeans, which is telling in and of itself. But what's the situation like? Do you have any idea with air defense in Ukraine?
Well, I believe just the other day there was a comment from a Ukrainian politician. I can't remember exactly who, but there was a comment something like Ukraine is shooting down most of their own aircrafts with the air defense.
She made that comment.
Yeah. So, beyond that, I'm not, that's not really my sphere that far into it. But I mean, as far as the air goes, the majority of this war is fought in the air, and it's not fought in, manned aircraft. It's the drones. I mean, it's such a just horrible situation every day, being on the front and not being able to protect yourself. Because in the old days of the war, I used to be able to say, okay, there's a tree here, a wall here, a stone here, and the threat's in this direction. So I know if I position myself like this, I'll have a better chance of making it if there's an incoming. But now you don't have any control. I mean, you never know which direction it's going to come from. I mean, just the drone warfare is just incredibly intense now, and so many people are dead. So many journalists have been killed, civilians. It's just a horrible situation.
Okay, Patrick, we will leave it there. Is there anything else you would like to tell our viewers?
Just, my normal spiel. Don't just be led like sheep by the mainstream media. Think outside the box. Don't get as many different perspectives as possible. Don't just watch our reports. Watch reports on the other side of the perspective. Just think for yourself and then come up with your own opinion. Don't let someone force an opinion down your throat. Get as much information from as many perspectives as possible.
Patrick Lancaster, thank you once again for joining us on the Duran. Where can people find you?
Definitely on my YouTube channel, Patrick Lancaster. And most of all, you got to go and subscribe to my Substack. That's where so much more information, long form articles, short clips, and just so much more is going. So it's a must.
I will have those links in the description box down below and as a pinned comment as well. So definitely recommend following Patrick Lancaster. Take care, Patrick.
All right. You too, Alex. Thanks for having me on. It's been great.